Now let's talk about sequences. Sequences is going to be your timeline. This is going to be the area where you do most of your editing. Now you can have one sequence in a project, or you can have multiple sequences. There are also multiple ways on how to create a sequence. Let's walk through some of those steps. The first way is by heading over to your project bin, selecting your clip. Let's hold while we click, and you'll see a hand appear. I'm going to drag my clip down to that paper icon, and we're going to create a new item. You'll see a plus sign appear next to the hand. I'm going to release. And now what Adobe did was it not only created a new sequence, it took all of those clip settings, applied it to our sequence, and even housed our clip within that sequence. If I wanted to change the name, all I need to do is click on the name. It becomes highlighted, and I could type what I want the sequence to be. This is probably the simplest way to create your sequence. But if you want to be adventurous and create your own sequence from scratch, all you need to do is head up to File, New, and then head over to Sequence. I cannot stress enough how much Adobe wants to help their users. They've gone ahead and they've created sequence presets. Whether you're filming on a Canon, a Sony, or even the cinematic red camera, they've given you a good starting point to help match your clip settings. You might be in a scenario that you need even more customization. You can always head over to Settings. You can adjust the editing mode by using the drop-down menu. As you can see, Adobe's provided a lot of clip options. But you can always head all the way to the top and use the custom setting. This is also where you would deal with aspect ratio. Typically, when you edit a video, you're editing in a 16:9 or a perfect rectangle. Right now, we're looking at a 4:3 or a perfect square. It's important to get familiar with aspect ratios because sometimes clients request different ratios, like if you're editing for Instagram. I'm going to go ahead and select this sequence anyway, even though it's a perfect square. As you can see, it looks very different than our other sequence. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag my clip into this particular sequence. I'm prompted with a clip mismatch warning. This is Adobe's way of telling us that the clip does not match the sequence we just created. Ultimately, you want the clip and the sequence to be hand in hand. I'm going to go ahead and select Change My Sequence Settings. Now I have that 16:9 perfect rectangle ratio. Let's talk about our source monitor. Source monitor is the preview for all our clips. Program monitor is going to be showing you what you're editing. In order to get your clip into the source monitor, just double click on the clip, and as you see, it appears. The entire clip is going to be there, so we're looking at a 4-minute clip. The nice thing about Source Monitor is you could already start editing within the Source Monitor. Let's say I just want a certain section within this clip. I can move my playhead to find where I want to start my clip. Let's pick right about here. I'm going to bring my mouse down to this bracket. I'm going to select my endpoint. And I'm telling Adobe that anything after the playhead is okay to go into the timeline. Anything before the playhead, I don't want to see in my timeline. Now remember, we're not deleting that portion of the clip. We're just bringing it to our timeline. Now this clip might be a little too long, so I'm going to take my playhead and I'm going to find where I want to end it. Right about there is good. I'm going to go to the other bracket or the mark out. I'm going to take my clip by clicking within the source monitor. As you can see, the hand reappears, and I'm going to drag it down to the timeline. And we just made our first edit. Let's briefly touch upon the tools that you're going to be using most within Premiere. As of right now, we have the selection tool selected. Under this tool, I could click on my clip within the sequence and I could move it. What happens if I drag this clip down and I find that it's a little too long? I can move my playhead and I could find where I want to cut it. I'm going to select my razor tool. See how I have a red line through the razor? That's Premiere's way of telling me there's no clip there to cut. But as I move my razor over the clip, you see that we can now cut. I could click down and now we have 2 clips instead of 1. I could go ahead and select my selection tool again, select the portion that I want to delete, and press delete. If I wanted to undo this, there are 2 options. I could go to edit and select undo, or if I wanted to extend the clip again, I could select the end of the clip and see now how I have an arrow. I could click on the clip and I could drag and see how now I have a video preview. That's Adobe telling me you're now selecting the clip to extend. And that's what we're going to see at the end of our clip. The hand tool is incredibly useful for moving back and forth within your timeline. If I wanted to create some simple text, all I need to do is go to the type tool. I could drag my mouse over the program monitor, and now you see, as I drag, a red text box appears. I could type the text that I want, and as you can see, if we look down on our sequence, we now have our clip and we have a text layer. To extend the text layer, just as we extended the clip, we can select, hold, and drag. The last thing I'm going to touch upon with our sequence is our different viewing options. If we want to see more of the timeline, we can use the slider on the bottom to see more of our project. This, however, also makes our clips smaller. We can do the reverse to lengthen our clips for viewing. We can also, on the side, use our sliders to increase our viewing when it comes to the clips. As you can see, as I decrease the slider, I get a bigger thumbnail for my video. This slider is for audio. And now we created our first sequence and we've created our first edit.